This conference will now be recorded.
Good evening, and thank you for joining us. I'm Melissa Malora, the Public Outreach Coordinator here at the South Jersey Transportation Planning Organization. On Wednesday, July 2nd, we opened a public comment period for two of our planning products, the Transportation Improvement Program and then the Transportation Conformity Determination. The public meeting being held today is required as part of our public outreach process, and we'll be providing an overview of both of the planning products with the primary focus being on the TIP and its significance in the region. The TIP is our list of roadway projects, and we want you to be informed on how state and federal transportation funding is being spent. We hope that you've come prepared to ask us questions, but please know that we're accepting comments through Sunday, August 17th. We'll be putting out a notice that we actually extended the public comment period to that date. And I'll be providing more information later on in the presentation, how to submit comments outside of tonight's meeting. Just another quick note, you'll be hearing us use several different acronyms throughout the presentation, and we'll do our best to define them, but you can always visit our glossary and acronyms page on our website for additional context. For this meeting, we're using the GoToMeeting platform, and I just want to call out a few features before we get started. One feature is the mute and unmute button. You'll see that as the microphone icon. So it'll be green if you're unmuted and red if you're muted. We ask that everyone remain muted unless they wish to speak up to voice a comment or a question. And then if you're using this feature, we just ask that you introduce yourself so that way it's easy to identify everyone. You also have access to the chat feature, which is shown at the top as a speech bubble. So you feel free to use that, and we'll be monitoring it throughout the presentation. You're also free to share your use the share your camera feature, but we're not requiring cameras to be on for this presentation. As mentioned at the start of the meeting, I'm Melissa Malora. I prepared all of the public outreach materials, ensuring that SJTPO meets all our federal requirements and adequately involves the public. We also have Alice Gibson. She is the program manager for capital programming and project development. She is actually the technical manager for the TIP. To my left is David Heller. He is the program manager and the technical manager for the Transportation Conformity Determination. And then to my right is Jennifer Marandino. She is the executive director, so she oversees the organization and all of its efforts. I believe we have some staff from DOT, New Jersey Department of Transportation, and NJ Transit online. They're here because the STIP, or the Statewide Transportation Improvement Program, is also out for public comment. A bit of background information: SJTPO was formed in 1993 and is the federally designated metropolitan planning organization serving Atlantic, Cape May, Cumberland, and Salem counties. We are one of 3 MPOs in New Jersey, with MPOs required in urbanized areas with populations of 50,000 or more. And as a reference, SJTPO's winter population is roughly 588,000, but then in the summertime, it increases to 1.7 million, and that's as of the 2020 census. And then if SJTPO was its own state, it would be the 9th densest state in the country. And then during the summertime, it would move up to the third densest state. Overall, SJTPO's primary functions include providing access to federal transportation funds, serving as a technical resource, and working to promote state and federal planning priorities in South Jersey. It's essential to note that we'll provide additional details about the TIP and the list of roadway projects. These projects are still in the early stages of development, and the TIP documents, it represents the initial funding slated for the next 10 years, and SJTPO, DOT, and New Jersey Transit have agreed upon this funding. You may have residential concerns such as potholes or speed limits, but our purpose here is not to address those comments, mainly because we're not the appropriate entity to do so, but we can act as a resource, and one of our resources is our public engagement guide, specifically the Knowing Who to Contact section. The URL is on the slide. It's www.sjtpo.org/engagement guide. So we're hoping that you check that out if that's the reason why you attended tonight's public meeting. But that's it for me now, and I'll hand it over to Jen.
Okay, thank you, Melissa. These three core products that you see on the slide, the UPWP or the Unified Planning Work Program, the RTP or Regional Transportation Plan, and Melissa already talked about the TIP, are required for all MPOs in the country. They are our three core products. Here at SJTPO, we often indicate that they are the backbone of our planning process. The UPWP creates a budget for the organization. It's updated every year. It lays out staff priorities and identifies technical studies and how what different work that our sub-regional program partners will do. We already talked about those counties. And the RTP itself creates the long-term vision for SJTPO with a horizon of 25 years. Our current RTP is Forward 2050, and that was approved earlier this year in January. The RTP essentially is the guiding document for the TIP. Project selection and scoring was all completed during the development of the RTP last spring and summer. The list of projects, or the TIP, that we're here for today is updated every 2 years. So in contrast to the RTP, the TIP is more near-term projects, which are programmed to be advanced with federal funds. The TIP was last updated in 2023, so we are due for an update this year. Melissa mentioned the STIP. SJTPO's TIP is one component of the statewide transportation improvement program for the state of New Jersey. This includes TIPs from all three MPOs in New Jersey. You see again on the slide, you have the Delaware Valley Regional Planning Commission, or DVRPC, and the North Jersey Transportation Planning Authority, or NJTPA. This graphic on the slide visually shows the coverage area of the three MPOs. The TIP itself is a rather large document. Highway projects and programs to be advanced by our county and municipal partners are listed in the TIP, as well as those led by NJDOT and New Jersey Transit in our 4-county region, are all included in various sections of the TIP document. Essentially, the STIP, or the Statewide Transportation Improvement Program, serves two purposes. Essentially, it is a comprehensive one-volume guide to major transportation improvements planned in the state of New Jersey. And second, it serves as a reference document required for all federal regulations used by FHWA, Federal Highway Administration. Thank you. The W made me a little confused there. And the Federal Transit Authority in approving the expenditure of federal funds for transportation projects in the state of New Jersey. So let's get into just a little bit about what the TIP is. Again, it's federally mandated that the document lists all federal and state funded surface transportation projects and programs in a metropolitan area. It sets the schedule for those improvements over the next 4 years, programmed based upon available funding dedicated to specific projects or programs. The MPO develops it in collaboration with the state and local transportation agencies, transit operators, and the public themselves. Each MPO is required to produce a TIP that spans at least 4 years and must be updated every 2 years. The structure of the TIP is such that the first 4 years of programming from October 1st through September 30th, 2029 must be fiscally constrained. In other words, the projects programmed for funding cannot exceed the available resources. The last 6 years, October 1st, 2029 through September 30th, 2035, are information only. As the graphic on the slide depicts projects, the process by which projects are selected and advanced requires collaboration and is an iterative process. We coordinate with our sub-regional planning partners, again, including Atlantic, Cape May, Cumberland, and Salem counties, along with Atlantic City and the City of Vineland, who are 2 city subregions in the SJTPO region itself. This collaboration is to identify and prioritize projects using our project evaluation process. And I'll speak a little bit more about that in the next slide, the next few slides, I should say. SJTPO works with NJDOT and New Jersey Transit capital programming staff to forecast the availability of federal funding over the 10-year period of the TIP. And the TIP represents projects and programs which can be reasonably expected to advance or be implemented over that 10-year period. To fully understand, though, how projects are selected and advanced, we need to address the relationship between the TIP and the RTP. All federally funded projects in the TIP must be included in the RTP. As previously noted, the RTP sets that long-term vision for the region, planning for the next 20 years. Again, our horizon year is 2050. The RTP itself is intended to serve as a project pipeline and connection to the TIP. The RTP needs to be updated every 4 years, while the TIP is on a 2-year cycle. So as such, every other update cycle, project selection and scoring are initiated during the RTP update. This particular TIP coincides with the RTP, and thus the project selection was completed in late March, as noted. Projects and the such were scored in May and June of last year with some back and forth with our sub-regional partners. And again, this was all done as part of the RTP development. Our project evaluation process was updated during the RTP process. So as I noted, the project selection process is used to score and evaluate projects for inclusion in both the RTP and the TIP, with recognition that there are 2 distinct differences between projects and the timelines for both. A tailored evaluation for each is necessary, and this was a change that we made as part of the RTP development process. The process is now bifurcates the scoring into projects that fall within years 1 through 10, and then those within years 11 plus. The slide notes that the near-term projects are those in years 1 through 10, and then subsequently years 11 and beyond are really the long-term projects. This new dual approach recognizes that the near-term projects can be assessed with greater accuracy and detail due to the availability of more comprehensive information available. The long-term projects are evaluated a little bit more broadly, focusing on their potential for impact and alignment with strategic emphasis areas, again, given their limited available information. The slide shows the major components of each of the 2 project evaluation processes, and if you're interested in getting some more details, both of the links to the RTP page and the TIP are noted on the top of the slide there. Once projects are selected to be programmed in the TIP, funds must be identified for their advancement. This slide represents a visual representation of how federal highway funding is distributed throughout the TIP. It should be noted, though, that although FTA funds are not noted on the slide, they follow the very same process. So all funds for federal highway funds flow through USDOT to NJDOT to SJTPO, and then ultimately to the 4 counties in South Jersey for their utilization. Federal highway and FTA are both major funding sources for the TIP. Additionally, there are state projects that are funded through appropriations or the Transportation Trust Fund, which can be used for various selected projects. Counties, municipalities, private developers, toll road authorities, and transit operators are also potential funding sources for projects. Projects are funded under various funding sources depending upon the type of work to be completed. For federally funded projects initiated by our SJTPO county partners, the primary funding source is the Surface Transportation Block Grant Program. These projects are often referred to as local lead projects since the county serves as a project sponsor and they are the responsible party for moving the project through the project delivery process. STBGP funding may be used on highway, bridge, or transit capital projects, planning and research programs, and a variety of other eligible project types. The 4 STBGP funding categories available for use in the SJTPO region are listed on the slide and correspond to a specific geographical area on the map based upon population. SJTPO receives funds for the Atlantic City urbanized area, but you can see that this here that the green area, which is that Atlantic City urbanized area, only makes up a small portion of the SJTPO region. NJDOT, though, has committed funding to our subregional partners to allow projects outside of that urbanized area to advance with federal funds. The other non-urbanized area funds are shown in orange, and that is often known as the violent urbanized area. Purple is focusing on the Salem, Bridgeton, and Hamilton areas, and then the light blue is everything else that's displayed populations of less than 5,000. And then the last thing I'll mention on this slide is that you see the dark gray area, which is actually the Philadelphia urbanized area bleeding into our region. And then similarly, there's a small gray area just outside of the violent area, and that bleeds into the Philadelphia urbanized area as well. So during the development of the TIPs, SJTPO staff programs the locally led projects in the appropriate funding category in accordance with their applicable urbanized area. So aside from the Surface Transportation and Block Grant funding, counties and municipalities in the region are eligible for additional funding through New Jersey Transit and NJDOT, but distributed by SJTPO. The project selection process for these different funding programs are different based upon the nature of the funding source itself. They have their own distinct selection criteria and are solicited on a different timeline than the TIP and what we're talking about here. Additional information on these funding sources is available on our SJTPO website. Okay, this slide depicts essentially how funding is spent in our region. Each project or program that is in the TIP has a specific management category assigned to it. The graph itself illustrates the types of projects included in the TIP, encompassing projects led by various agencies, again, including New Jersey Transit, NJDOT, as well as our county and other municipal partners. All projects sponsored by our subregional partners are categorized under the local system support, but this also includes funds for NJDOT funded programs, including local bridge future needs, transportation alternatives programs, and the like. Also included are some New Jersey Transit programs, such as Section 5310 program, and this provides funds to help meet the transportation needs of older adults and people with disabilities. Nearly 80 projects and programs fall within this capital investment category. And now I'll hand it over to Alice for some additional details.
Thank you, Jennifer. The TIP document is a very large document. This slide highlights the 4 key components of the TIP to help break down the document. In the previous slides, Jennifer spoke about the coordination that goes into developing the TIP document. I will provide an overview of the list of projects and the financial plan. Almost half of the TIP is the list of projects that will be funded over the next 10 years. A little later, Dave will provide more information on the transportation conformity and performance-based planning that must occur alongside the TIP. The TIP must include all regionally significant projects receiving FHWA or FTA funds, or for which FHWA or FTA approval is required. In addition to non-federally funded projects that are consistent with the RTP, all surface transportation projects and other transportation-related improvements within the SJTPO region are included in the TIP. The projects are categorized by state organizations. A list of each of these sections can be found further in the body of the TIP in sections 2 through 8 as noted. The projects in section 5 are financed through congressionally directed spending, competitive grant programs from various federal agencies, or other federal funding mechanisms. These funds are not otherwise listed in the resources or expenditures tables listed in the TIP. Section 6 includes projects which are being advanced by the toll authorities in the SJTPO region. These agencies include the South Jersey Transportation Authority, or SJTA, the New Jersey Turnpike Authority, NJTA, and the Delaware River Bay Authority, DRBA. These agencies undertake numerous significant projects by utilizing their funds. The Federal Lands Highway Program provides funding for use by the federal land management agencies and FHWA for the planning, design, construction, or reconstruction of designated public roads that provide access to, through, or within federal or tribal lands. These projects are listed in Section 7. Section 8 includes projects being advanced through study and development. Projects in this section are led by MJDOT and aim to identify and prepare candidate projects to be added to future fiscal year TIPs. Federal regulations require that major projects be listed from the previous TIP that was implemented. The list within Section 9 identifies any significant delays in the planned implementation of major projects. The TIP document is quite a large document, but as previously noted, it is most simplistically a list of projects. The next few slides will highlight projects within each of the 4 counties in the SJTPO region. Information on these slides was taken from the county snapshots developed this TIP cycle. This information will be posted to the SJTPO website and used to share information through SJTPO's social media. Let's jump right in. Starting with Atlantic County. Atlantic County is the easternmost county located in the SJTPO region. It is the most high density and urbanized of the region's 4 counties. Atlantic City serves as the economic hub of the region. In this TIP, there are 4 bridges, 1 safety improvement project, 1 trail project, and 19 SJTPO locally led roadway projects programmed for the next 10 years in Atlantic County. There is a total of 28 projects programmed for the next 10 years in various project classifications. 14 of those 28 projects are being advanced in the first 4 years for Atlantic County. Route 9 from Chapman Boulevard to Route 30 is one of the projects that has 4 phases, including design, construction, right-of-way, and utilities. Cape County is the southernmost county in the SJTPO region. In this TIP cycle, there are 3 bridges, 1 safety improvement project, 1 dam project, and 9 SJTPO locally led roadway projects programmed for the next 10 years in Cape May County. There is a total of 16 projects programmed for the next 10 years in various project classifications. 12 of those 16 projects are being advanced in the first 4 years for Cape May County. Route 9 from Tuckahoe Road to Roosevelt Boulevard is a project with 3 phases, including design, construction, and right-of-way. Cumberland County is the most centrally located county in the SJTPO region. The city of Vineland serves as the economic hub of the county. There is 1 bridge project, 1 safety improvement project, and 11 SJTPO locally led projects programmed for the next 10 years in Cumberland County. There is a total of 13 projects programmed for the next 10 years in various project classifications. 7 of those 13 projects are being advanced in the first 4 years for Cumberland County. Route 47 from Henderson Avenue to High Street is one of the projects that has 4 phases, including design, construction, right-of-way, and utilities. Salem County is the westernmost county located in the SJTPO region. It has the lowest population and most rural area of the region's 4 counties. There is 1 bridge project, 1 intersection project for a possible roundabout to reduce vehicle crashes, and 12 SJTPO locally led projects programmed for the next 10 years in Salem County. There is a total of 14 projects programmed for the next 10 years in various project classifications. 10 of the 14 projects are being advanced in the first 4 years for Salem County. 9 of the projects have 3 phases, including preliminary engineering, design, and construction. Earlier in the presentation, I noted that the project list makes up much of the TIP document, so let's explore that a little bit more. What does a TIP project sheet look like? This is a typical project sheet. All the funding, as mentioned, is allocated to projects or line items. The DB-NUM or database number allows these involved with the TIP and STIP to easily identify the project. The project name, county, municipality, and sponsor provide additional information to further identify the project. The description of the project may include recommendations and project specifications. The mileposts provide the approximate limits for the various projects. Programs do not have milepost limits listed and are identified as various. The phase references the phase of work. On this sheet, CON refers to construction. Other phases include DES for preliminary engineering or final design, ROW for right-of-way, etc. The fund identifies the funding source, and the amount is listed by year, in this case, federal fiscal years 2024 to 2033. And the asset management category references the type of project which was displayed in the pie chart showed earlier in the presentation. While the last few slides were meant to highlight the projects in the TIP, there are lots more projects advancing in the region. To enhance transparency and accessibility, SJTPO developed a dynamic web-based mapping application to accompany the TIP. This web map application allows users to explore projects geographically and interactively. Each project listing within the map includes the information within the tip sheet discussed on the previous slide. Given the evolving nature of the tip, SJTPO maintains a single, continuously updated map rather than a static version which can easily become outdated. The TIP projects map is available on the SJTPO website under Planning. Find Transportation Improvement Program TIP webpage, scroll the webpage, and find the TIP project map. A new window will open to the SJTPO GIS viewer. If you navigate to the question mark on the left side of the screen, you can download and view the user guide. Going back to the map, you can click and view the legend. Additional layers will be added. Currently, SJTPO locally led and NJDOT sponsored projects are displayed. The next icon will allow you to view the base layers, and the icon, which looks like 4 small boxes grouped together, will allow you to change the map background. The bar chart icon will allow you to filter projects by type and phase of work. If you filter to SJTPO locally led projects and then filter to those projects that are in the PE phase, projects in Salem and Cumberland County are displayed that matches that criteria. Click the pull-up bar located at the bottom of the page. A list of TIP projects will appear based on the project sponsor and phase. You may click on the highlighted projects on the map to view additional project details. The pie chart icon will break down the projects. You can see the 9 projects in Salem County which have funding programmed for preliminary engineering of work and another 4 projects in Cumberland County for a total of $1 million programmed. The funnel icon allows you to query projects by total funds and year of funding. Here you can change the range from 117 million to 40 million. The result is 0 projects because the PE phase is typically less than 1 million. You can query every year of funding when you select 2028. You will get 1 project. You can zoom to project by selecting the 4 dots. You can add other data to the GIS viewer that you have available. And finally, the last icon is the question mark again, where guide is located. You can find the TIP project map on the SJTPO website. We will be making edits to the map to add more layers, other federally funded project locations, so keep checking back. This new map will allow updating when the TIP is amended, which wasn't something we did before. Moving back to the TIP document, one of the key elements of the TIP is the financial plan. A detailed description of the financial plan can be found in the section titled Project Funding in the TIP. Federal planning regulations require the TIP to contain a financial plan that demonstrates how it will be implemented. Fiscal constraint is required and is defined as a program of projects that does not exceed the resources in any given federal fiscal year. In accordance with federal legislation, federal expenditures in the first 4 years of the TIP are strictly fiscally constrained. The TIP must indicate the resources from public and private sources that are reasonably expected to be made available, as well as any recommendations for innovative funding needs in the region. The breakdown of expenditures and resources are included in the TIP. Although a new TIP is developed every 2 years, the TIP is updated as needed through a modification and amendment process. Once the TIP is adopted by the SJTPO Policy Board, approved by the state, and the STIP is approved by the federal government, procedures for updating the TIP are specifically outlined in a Joint Memorandum of Understanding, or the MOU, between DVRPC, NJTPA, SJTPO, New Jersey Transit, and NJDOT. The MOU establishes a set of procedures to be used for processing and implementing revisions, amendments, and modifications to the 3 TIP documents from the 3 MPOs, as well as revisions to the STIP. As noted, federal regulations require that each project or project phase included in the TIP shall be consistent with the approved RTP. To maintain consistency between both documents, the RTP will be revised alongside the TIP. Any modification made to the current TIP is incorporated into a TIP tracker and is posted on the SJTPO website, providing complete transparency. Now I'll turn it over to Dave to discuss the remaining 2 components of the TIP, transportation conformity and performance-based planning.
Thank you, Alice. So transportation conformity, as the process is formally known, is demonstrated when future planned federally funded highway and transit projects are determined not to cause new air quality violations, worsen existing violations, or delay the timely attainment of the National Ambient Air Quality Standards, or NAAQS as the acronym is known. Because the SJTPO is in a non-attainment area for ozone, transportation conformity is required whenever a new TIP and/or RTP, or Regional Transportation Plan, is adopted, or there's a significant amendment to either. So non-attainment means that the outside air quality for ozone falls beneath the NAAQS as set by the US EPA, and the current ozone standards are 70 parts per billion. The SJTPO region cannot exceed these standards. All future projects and programs in the TIP and the RTP are required to conform. This is done through a complex emissions modeling process that projects future vehicular emissions and compares them against pre-established emissions budgets. More details on this process, as well as the results, are included as part of the Transportation Conformity Determination, which is Appendix A of the TIP. So the entire 4-county SJTPO region falls within the Philadelphia, Wilmington, Atlantic City, PA, New Jersey, Maryland, Delaware, serious 8-hour ozone non-attainment area. So the slide depicts the 8-hour ozone region that the SJTPO falls into. It's within that yellow box. As you can see, the non-attainment region covers more than just the 4-county SJTPO region, including the Philadelphia metropolitan region. In addition to the SJTPO region, it includes Burlington and Ocean counties in New Jersey, 5 counties in Pennsylvania, 1 in Delaware, and 1 in Maryland. So while there is ozone generated within our region, mostly from transportation, much of the ozone problem within our region is from transport of ozone from the north and the west, both of which are very industrialized. Nonetheless, all it takes is one monitor within the entire air quality non-attainment region to not meet the standards for the whole entire region to fall into non-attainment. So as noted previously, a complex emissions modeling process projects future vehicular emissions and compares them against pre-established emissions budgets. So budget tests were performed for volatile organic compounds, or VOCs, and NOx, or nitrogen, which refers to nitrogen oxides, for the SJTPO region. The tests determine whether improvement actions or action scenarios can keep emissions within the budget. So the results are determined by subtracting projected emissions from the budgeted amounts, as is indicated on the slide. The VOC and NOx budget tests passed for all 8-hour ozone non-attainment analysis years, as displayed in tables 4 and 5 of the Transportation Conformity Determination and also shown on the slide. A successful conformity determination means that we have passed all the required emissions tests, meaning that our TIP and RTP conform to the national air quality standards set by the US EPA, and all of our projects can proceed without delay. Performance-based planning and programming is a strategic approach used by MPOs to ensure that transportation investment decisions are driven by data and aligned with measurable desired outcomes. So the performance-based planning verifies that transportation investments made in the SJTPO region contribute to established performance targets. These targets are part of SJTPO's performance-based planning process, which aims to strengthen the linkage between policies and long-range decisions, and as well as specific transportation investments in the system and measurable outcomes of transportation investments. To guide agencies in carrying out performance-based planning, the DOT has issued five specific rules mandating the establishment of specific performance management measures and targets. The Federal Highway Administration administers rules covering safety, pavement and bridge conditions, and travel time and freight reliability, while the Federal Transit Administration administers rules governing transit asset management and public transportation safety, as depicted on the slide. SJTPO is required to set its own targets or support the state's targets for each measure. The specific targets, as well as progress towards meeting the targets, will be listed in Appendix B of the TIP. Currently, the document indicates that Appendix B is reserved for when pages become available. The appendix is still being finalized. However, it is anticipated that it will be available this week, well in advance of the close of the public comment period. An email will be sent out to SJTPO's e-list to notify of this. And now I'll return it back to Melissa. Thank you.
Okay, so the presentation portion of tonight's meeting is complete. We're now looking to hear from attendees. Please remember that since you're attending virtually, you can unmute yourself or use the chat box. And we just ask that you identify yourself before speaking if you're voicing your comment aloud. Nothing in the chat.
No.
Okay, so we're just going to go to questions that have already been previously asked. We have a few of them. So the first one is for Jennifer, and the specific question is, how can an individual get involved with a project?
Okay, so we talked about that the TIP itself is a list of projects. They are including just the federally funded projects in the SJTPO region and completed by our sub-regional partners. In addition, there are local projects being led by our county, state partners, and some of them projects are not included in the TIP. So if your particular project of concern is on a local road, you can reach out to your municipality. If it's on a county road, then you'd reach out to the county themselves. And then similarly, if it's on a state road, you can reach out to NJDOT for further guidance. If you're not sure where to begin or how to request a new project, you can write a letter to your county officials. And I think, Melissa, you talked a little about the public engagement guide that we have. So if you're really not sure what type of project you're looking for, I know that there's part of that guidance document that indicates that.
Okay, so moving on to our second question. This one is for Alice. How can my residential street be funded for maintenance, i.e. potholes, unfinished utility work, etc.?
Sure. It is important to understand that not all the projects are eligible for federal funding. Most projects that are federally funded are major collectors of traffic or are on public roadways. This does not include local or residential roadways. The best way to request maintenance on a local or residential road, as in your neighborhood, would be to reach out to the county pothole hotline or request a new project. Write a letter to your county elected official.
Okay, thank you. The third question that came in so far throughout the public comment period has been, how likely is SJTPO to not pass conformity? And then there's a second part, which is, what would need to occur for SJTPO to not pass? And I'm going to give Dave the floor for that one.
Okay, so at this point, with our current project mix, with very few capacity enhancement projects and relatively flat demographic growth projected, we have a pretty comfortable margin between our projected emissions and emissions budgets. For us not to pass, we'd have to have significantly higher projected emissions, which would exceed the emissions budgets, or the emissions budgets would have to become a lot more stringent, such that our projected emissions would exceed the emissions budgets.
Okay, so we're looking at the chat. We don't see any, and no one has raised their hand or unmuted themselves. So we're just going to go to our next slide. It kind of lists out the next steps and key dates. So the public comment period is going to now end on Sunday, August 17th. We extended the public comment period to give members of the public ample time to review Appendix B, which was not made available at the start of the public comment period. We'll be sending out an email to our e-list and posting on social media once that becomes more public knowledge outside of tonight's public meeting. And then after that time, we'll review all of the comments, and the questions, and then we'll provide formal responses along with the comments, and they'll be included in the final draft of the plans. And then on Monday, September 8th, the TIP will be presented to the TAC for recommendation to the policy board for approval. And if approved by members of the TAC, the TIP will be reviewed on Monday, September 22nd, which is a public meeting of the policy board. And then afterward, the TIP and the transportation conformity documents will be submitted to NJDOT, with NJDOT then submitting the documents to FHWA, FTA, and EPA, and then the agencies will review and approve the documents by October of this year. This is our final slide of the presentation for this meeting. The information on this slide is available on the SJTPO website, the TIP page specifically, and it has been shared via public notice in area newspapers and the SJTPO information mailing list. We have several ways in which you can comment outside of tonight's public meeting, including emailing tip@sjtpo.org. On the TIP webpage, we also have a comment form. We also accept comments via fax, and then on our social media pages, which we are on Facebook and X, which is also known as Twitter. And if you're a professional, then we're also on LinkedIn. We'll also gladly accept comments through the mail, and our mailing address is listed on the slide. Again, comments are welcomed through August 17th. And then if you or anyone you know is looking for a physical copy of the TIP, you can visit our office here in Vineland or the reference section of participating state depository libraries in the region. And the TIP webpage actually has a list of those libraries. So we suggest calling the libraries in advance of driving there, just to make sure that they have them on display. They were sent. But you never know. And then if you or anyone you know needs translation or interpretation services, those requests, we can accommodate them. And then besides that, a recording will be posted on YouTube, and a link will be provided probably in the mailing once we say that we're extending the comment period. So other than that, I'll give one last look. I don't see anything in the chat or anybody.
No hand raised.
No hand raised. Okay, so that concludes our last public meeting for the TIP and the transportation conformity documents. We appreciate you taking the time out of your busy schedule to sit through the presentation, and we hope you have a great rest of your evening. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks. Take care, folks.
You
Thank
too.
you, Lou.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you, Amy.